Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time, and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through the call and bottom line the information for you, but we do have a lot to discuss today. I'm going to try to do a full call. Someone's trying to call me right now as soon as I get on these calls. I've been doing this for, 11 years, and people are still calling me at noon on Wednesday. But it is what it is. So let's go ahead and get started. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. Of course, the most relevant piece of information for those of us that have currencies is the window for the potential reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar and hopefully some of these other currencies. As I've stated for the last couple of weeks, in my opinion, the reinstitution of the dinar could happen at any time. And the number of naysayers, or rather, to be more accurate, the people that really don't want it to happen, are really dwindling in number. There, in my view, three groups that are trying to, at the very least, postpone, if not stop, the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar. One group, of course, would be the mullahs of Iran, who have enjoyed hegemony over Iraq for the last couple of decades. They're pilfering the nation, and they want that to continue. The second group would be the pro-Iranian corrupt officials within the framework coalition within Iraq, and they're really being neutered by, of all people, the moderate Shia within the coalition framework. And when the coalition framework took control, I said that it was a very large tent, and the vast majority of Iraqi citizens are moderate Shia. They are not radical Iranian-type Shia. Even though some of the officials are, they're outnumbered. And the third group are left-leaning individuals in the United States government who simply do not want to see 10 million Americans become very wealthy individuals, because they know those 10 million wealthy individuals are not going to vote for larger government and higher taxes. But that group, they're not quite underwater yet, but they're treading water, and their days are numbered, because the reinstitution of the dinar, in my opinion, we've reached the point of no return. It's not that it will happen at some point. It has to happen, and in my opinion, it can't be stopped. So let's talk about why I think that's the case, who the major players are, certainly in Iraq, and what's happening. We have to start with Soudani, the Prime Minister of Iraq, who has fortunately picked up where Kazemi left off, and he's been a very busy man. Of course, this week we know the big piece of news is that he replaced the governor of the CBI, Mustafa Galeb, with Ali al-Awlaq. Ali al-Awlaq has been around for a while. As a matter of fact, he was an acolyte of Dr. Shabibi, who really began the process of what's taken so long, the reinstitution of the dinar. Awlaq also was one of the individuals that was instrumental in getting the lower dinams, at least in print. So just as Soudani has picked up where Kazemi left off, al-Awlaq is going to pick up where Shabibi left off. So that's very good news. The problem for Galeb, basically, was that he was moving in Soudani's mind much too slowly with the monetary reforms, i.e., moving too slowly with the national education program and moving too slowly with the things that needed to be done in order to reinstitute. So it's not that he did a bad job. He just wasn't moving as quickly as Soudani wanted. And when you think about it, to make a move this dramatic to replace the governor of the CBI has to be for a very specific reason. It can't be for window dressing. It can't be for little differences of opinion. It had to be something of a major nature. And obviously what it is the implementation of the reinstitution of the dinar in country. But Soudani isn't done there. He also negotiated an oil deal with Germany, and that's important because Germany arguably might be the biggest player within the EU, and he negotiated a massive security and infrastructure contract with the Saudis. Now, this is basically punishing the Iranians, who once again have attempted to enjoy hegemony over Iraq. So now they're being undercut in the EU with the sale of petroleum from Iraq, and the Iranians are being undercut by the Saudis, who now are going to be dealing with security issues and infrastructure. This is a direct assault on Iran's attempt to control and contain Iraq. And remember, they have fought against the reinstitution of the dinar for decades, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. Soudani has also been having meetings with the ministers because he wants to fast-track completion of the budget for presentation to Parliament, and that should be happening very shortly as well. Soudani is also having meetings this week with the World Trade Organization at the behest of the World Trade Organization. Now, without their own currency, Iraq cannot do all of the things necessary in order to participate in international contracts, international trade, import and export, all of that. That can't be done without their own currency. The U.S. dollar, they just don't have sufficient reserves. Even though they have nearly $100 billion in USD, it costs them over $70 billion just to run their country. So there's the $30 billion remaining isn't going to sustain what they have planned. So obviously the World Trade Organization is meeting and negotiating with the government of Iraq with the assumption that they're going to be reinstituting their currency. We also know that that Soudani is planning meetings with the UST to discuss the rate between the USD and the IQD. And this is all done with the knowledge that the U.S. federal bank is tightening, meaning they are limiting the amount of U.S. dollars that will be available to the Iraqi government as a reserve currency. So there'd be no need to have an auction to purchase U.S. dollars when the number of U.S. dollars that's going to be available has been substantially reduced. It also creates problems for their own lack of a currency in country. So for these reasons, at least the U.S. Treasury seems, whether they wanted to or not, it seems as though they're going to acquiesce and understand that the dinar is going to reinstitute and that the nation state of Iraq is going to be operating with its own currency, not the USD. Today's also an important day, too, because today, January 25th, has been declared as the National Day of Protest. That means that thousands of individuals are going to be protesting in front of the CBI and the Parliament for a reduction in the value of the U.S. dollar against the Iraqi dinar. So, unfortunately, because the dinar now has dropped to about 1,600, maybe 1,650 against the U.S. dollar, the Iraqi citizen has even less purchasing power with their own currency. Add to that the fact that there's been a tightening of the U.S. Fed on U.S. dollars in Iraq as well. So this squeeze on the citizen can continue. Now, there's the short view and there's the long view. The short view is that the reduction, at least for the time being, in the value of the Iraqi dinar is once again to collect the provisional 3-0 currency that's floating around out there. Most of it's been collected, probably 98, 99% of it, but there's still some dollars floating out there. Yes, some of the Iraqi citizens have squirreled it under their mattresses because They don't trust the banks. But the concern with the majority of the dinar that's still out there, the provisional 3-0 currency, it is in the hands of nefarious characters that want to exchange it when the dinar revalues. So that's why the dinar had slipped down to 1,600, but that's going to be reversed very, very quickly. Let's move a little bit and talk about what's going on with the CBI operations, because particularly with the appointment of Al-Alaq, the focus is, as it should be, on the monetary reforms. Now, as I said, the auctions are pretty much dead for a couple of reasons. Not only, again, because the U.S. Fed is tightening, but because there's been arrest of literally hundreds of owners of these corrupt exchange centers. Then you can add to that the intensified national education program, the establishment of an electronic platform for international transactions, and the creation of a phone app for real-time information about exchange rates. All of this, once again, is punishing Iran. It's pushing Iran out of Iraq. Not done with the understanding that the Iranian mullahs will see the light, but they will finally be forced to feel the heat. Now, let me just take a moment and talk about what's happening in Iran. Iran has a decision to make. They either are going to understand that they need to behave themselves, to leave Iraq alone, to stop fomenting terrorist actions in other neighboring countries, or they're going to continue to be isolated, and the sanctions that the Trump administration had put in place are going to be re-implemented, despite the fact that for whatever reason, I've tried to figure this out, why the Obama administration was wanting this deal with Iran, this nuke deal, and why the Biden administration seems to be pushing for it as well. I can't think of any legitimate reason. Let me put it that way. There's got to be some nefarious reason for it, because it makes absolutely no sense to give aid and comfort to the largest sponsor of international terrorism on the globe. But fortunately, I think the Iranians are going to be confronted with the situation. If they want to see the rial reinstitute and revalue at what its value once was, they're simply going to have to behave themselves. Now, is it possible that they're going to pretend that they've seen the light in order for this to occur? Yeah, that's entirely possible. But I do think there'll be countermeasures if they degenerate back into the nation that seems to be intent on their international interferences. So we'll see how that plays out. So all things considered, we have in Sudan a prime minister that's doing everything he can to move to the reinstitution of the dinar as soon as possible. He wants to get the budget done, and he wants a new rate in the budget. The CBI now is in the hands of Al-Alaq, who, along with Soudani, wants to see the reinstitution of the dinar. Remember, Shabibi wanted it done in 2012, 10 years ago. And Alaq, again, was his acolyte. So all of the right people are in place. All of the wrong people have been neutered. And that's why, in my opinion, we literally could see the reinstitution of the dinar at any time. Now, Trusts Unlimited has been marketing our trust to dinarians for over a decade, because we understood that most dinarians were average, middle-class, hard-working people who, for the first time in their life, will be left with the daunting task of managing a lot of money. But over the last couple of years, and more particularly in the last year, or even the last 6 months, it's become painfully obvious that the program we've put in place to assist dinarians is something that should be made available to all Americans, because all American citizens are under assault by the government that's in place right now. Our government, the United States government, people running the country right now are globalists. And they're literally trying to destroy the middle class in this country. If we go back a few centuries, we were in an age in Europe of feudalism where royalty lived lives of opulence, and whether the serfs, the average run-of-the-mill citizen, or serf is the better word for it, lived out and eked out a mere existence at the pleasure of royalty. And the only way I can explain it today is it's almost like they're reinstituting a feudal system where we have the elite who will live their lives of opulence, and the rest of us will be reduced to a drone working class. And the first thing they need to do is destroy the middle class, particularly in Western Europe and the United States. And here in this country, how do they destroy the middle class? Well, they have a three-pronged approach: overregulation, inflation to reduce our purchasing power, and taxation. And what have we seen since the Biden administration, and I might as well call it by name, took over? Reinstituted a lot of regulations, run roughshod with their agencies, issuing decrees which are not laws, which we do not have to obey, and which people had to go to the Supreme Court to slap them on the wrist and say, stop it, you can't force people to do things. Inflation. They've printed $6 trillion in the last 2 years, which has created rampant inflation. The inflation number they're giving us is bogus. The real inflation number is not 7 or 8%. The real inflation number is at least twice that. And in terms of taxation, what do they want to do? They basically want to eliminate the capital gain tax, and they hired 87,000 agents, allegedly, to audit the billionaires. There's 752 billionaires in the United States. And if all 752 billionaires are cheating on their taxes, they still don't need 87,000 agents to audit them. So this overregulation, the printing of money, which creates inflation and taxation, is to go after us, the great middle class. But even that's not enough for them. I suggest you Google, when you're off of this call, something called the Hamilton Project. Pursuant to Executive Order 14067, the United States has embarked on a transition to a central bank digital currency. So they want to eliminate a hard currency and go to a digital currency. What exactly is a digital currency? Well, again, pursuant to Executive Order 14063, which began its effectiveness on December 13th, they want to transition to a national digital currency. Their reason for this, stated reason, is that it is safe and it is liquid. That's absolute lie on both counts. First, a digital currency is not safe. We've seen routine hacks in government programs. We saw the unmitigated disaster of the Obamacare website. We also know that weapons of today, not nuclear weapons, not even a neutron bomb, but an electromagnetic pulse weapon could literally destroy all digital records, inclusive of a digital currency. I would not put it past an authoritarian government to use an EMP on its own people in order to wipe out a digital currency, which would essentially wipe out the wealth of an entire group of people. And unlike a hard currency, a digital currency, you can only do one of two things. You can either leave it in a digital treasury wallet, or you can exchange it for a good or a service. You can't put it in your pocket. You can't do anything with it without the knowledge and consent of the federal government. This would allow the federal government to freeze or confiscate that currency should they disapprove of your purchases. Let's say, for example, you wish to purchase an AR-15. Well, they decide you don't, quote-unquote, need an AR-15. So if you'll either be disallowed to purchase, or they'll limit your purchases for some period of time because of that purchase. They could even use that ability to freeze or confiscate funds in the digital currency for publicly held views that they don't like. I also suggest you Google the China social credit score system, because people in this government today even talk about the credit score system and how they think it's such a good idea. It's not a control mechanism. It's tyranny. And this is what the digital currency, this is where they're going with the digital currency. This is another reason why they don't seem to care that the U.S. dollar is being replaced as in terms of the international reserve currency by other currencies. Their objective is control of us. They're not as concerned with the other nations. Now, fortunately, there's been a lot of pushback. There's been nations that are getting together, like the BRICS nations, to utilize their own reserve currencies rather than the U.S. dollar. A lot of large oil producers are using other currencies rather than the U.S. dollar for reserve currency. But again, that still doesn't protect the American citizen if they go to a digital currency. So that's of concern. But this is why Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist Dinarians. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a family package of asset protection trusts. Post-RV involves all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. And because we are looking at the establishment of a national central bank digital currency, we can show you how you can operate outside of that system and minimize your exposure to that digital currency. But let's start with phase 1, which is, again, the establishment of your family asset protection trust package with the assignment of your currencies to that trust package. There is a reason that we decided that the only way to go would be a family of irrevocable trusts. There are other assets available that can provide some level of asset protection. For example, individuals can establish LLCs or sub-S corporations, and they do provide some level of asset protection, but primarily by dividing high-risk business assets from personal assets. The problem here is that the possession of these currencies is a personal asset. The other issue is this. Courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by an individual or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So the LLC and the sub-S corporation will not work for us. Some individuals have established something called a revocable trust, which has also been referred to as a living or loving trust. Now, these trusts can exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and if properly structured, can sometimes substantially reduce or even eliminate the federal estate tax. But the revocable living or loving trust can provide no privacy or asset protection. So they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established individual irrevocable trusts, and they will provide more protection than the previous entities I just described. But even the individual irrevocable trust has an inherent flaw, and it's this. Since all of your assets and net worth are held within that one single trust or legal entity, any asset within that entity that might get involved in civil litigation would necessarily bring all of your other assets and net worth into that litigation as well. So that's going to be inappropriate for your needs. This is why Trusts Unlimited has established a package of irrevocable trusts designed to protect you, your family, your children, and your grandchildren when it's time for that estate to move generationally from children to grandchildren. Now, why is it important to establish this trust prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies? Well, let's talk about that a little bit. First, by establishing this trust package, you're going to protect your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets within our family asset protection trust package are sealed, meaning the general public will have no knowledge of your worth your net holdings. This is important for another reason. It basically eliminates frivolous lawsuits. Wealthy individuals, and I'll just define that very simply as someone with a net worth of $1 million or more, 1 out of 4 will be sued within their lifetime. 40% of those lawsuits are nuisance frivolous lawsuits where the individual's basically saying, just give me some money and I'll go away. Well, the problem is this. Because all of your assets are in trust, the attorney representing the plaintiff in this frivolous lawsuit will have no knowledge of what you actually possess. Therefore, this attorney is not going to work on a retainer. On a contingency, he's going to want a retainer. Well, people that are interested in just getting a couple of bucks aren't going to pay a lawyer or retainer and go through litigation. So these lawsuits go away. Now, the second reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it'll allow you to avoid IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Now, such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly come along at the precise time that these currencies are revalued, and there are many other things you'd much rather be doing. And third, the cost of our Family Asset Protection Trust package would be less than the cost of a 6-year IRS audit. On the other hand, if your trust is in force and you have assigned your currencies to the trust, the taxable event of this revaluation will occur within the trust. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's less than a 15% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package such as ours. The IRS does not like to get embroiled in long civil suits with individuals that have sophisticated trusts, and they naturally assume that you also have very qualified legal assistance, so they move on to Joe Lunchbox and leave you alone. But the second most important thing is, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currency to family and friends. Many individuals that have dinar and these other currencies and are anticipating a substantial amount of wealth want to help out their family, want to help out their church, want to do philanthropic things, and that's good. But philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you need to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals, you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you've negotiated the exchange. That can be done outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But what happens if you're hesitant for whatever reason to give these individuals all of that money? You can gift the currencies to them through our specially designed gift subtrust, which is part of our package. And because you're gifting through this gift subtrust, you will negotiate the exchange. Their USD will go into that gift subtrust in their name, so their money will be protected along with yours. But you will then have sole discretion to manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. The probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only completely unacceptable, it's also completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number 2. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our Family Asset Protection Trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our Family Asset Protection Trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, meaning that your heirs will receive 100 cents on the dollar of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this Family Asset Protection Trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. This trust package will allow you to avoid something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does this mean? In essence, it means that under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could win by way of a civil suit would be none of the post-RV value of $25 million, but only the $5,000 that was paid for the currencies and what the currencies were worth when you transferred them out of title to our Family Asset Protection Trust package. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we've established a package of trusts, and I'll give you an example of how this would work. Let's use, once again, the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust. They subsequently revalued for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by the master trust, the initial trust that you established pre-RV. This constitutes the package. Now, how does this protect you from future lawsuits? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is the important part. All of your other assets and net worth are protected in the other sub-trusts. Why? Because under the law, the plaintiff would have no standing to pursue the other trusts, sub-trusts, which are separate legal entities or persons, because they had absolutely nothing to do with the accident in question. So your family asset protection package works very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you are, in fact, a holder of dinar and other currencies, and you have not established this family asset protection trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. But again, remember, if you are an American citizen, for the reasons I discussed earlier, this family asset protection trust package is your protection from a high tax, high regulation, high surveillance state, which is exactly what's being created right in front of our eyes. Now, as I said, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish this trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, post-RV, as I said, there are a number of benefits that will be made available to you. First, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the dinar, Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust package. We also intend on having our tax specialists there to show you how you can legally minimize your exposure to taxes post-RV. We also plan to have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. Now, for the reasons I discussed about inflation, the U.S. dollar, the central digital currency, and the intentions of the globalists, we're going to need to transition out of currencies and financial assets to tangible assets as quickly as possible after the revaluation. Now, it's going to be virtually impossible to avoid some exposure to currency, to the U.S. dollar and other currencies, but we can substantially minimize that by investing in income-producing tangible assets. And we can show you how to do that post-RV as well. Now, our package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like checking accounts, savings accounts, and investment accounts post-RV. 1, gift subtrust if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends, which subtrust can be converted to a standard subtrust at any time in the future, and then 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold homes, cars, boats, etc. We can increase the number of subtrusts if necessary as well. Now, this was the simplification of a trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Dinarians, we knew that price tag was going to be unaffordable for too many. So by basically simplifying that package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket cost just to produce and deliver your family trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the dinar revalues, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with a deferred payment arrangement, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but you'll get everything anyone else would get that paid us up front, and the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective, again, is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place for all of the reasons we've discussed here on this call. Now, I do plan to go to the Q&A, but before I do, and again for our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why we think you should contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. Now, that package does contain everything you need if you decide to proceed with the establishment of your family asset protection trust package. But again, you're under no obligation to do so. Package has a lot of information about us, about currencies, about trusts. You can review the package, contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. But if you should decide to proceed, everything you need is right there in the package. Now, our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. He's a nationally known estate planner and author. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for nearly 40 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved with the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have 80 years of experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, as we discussed earlier in our call, under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death, and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there is investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Again, anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. And if you are on the verge of experiencing the newfound wealth from the possession of the dinar and these other currencies, the last thing you want to do is see it go right out the door because of litigation that you're unprepared for. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of our family package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trust Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV, as we understand it. So thanks again for listening to the call, everyone. I'm going to open the Q&A here, and before I take any questions, I'm just going to give you our contact information. Okay, let me give you our contact information. Of course, you can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. That's trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. Okay, we have some questions here. Our first question is area code 903. That's 903. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I certainly can.
I needed your the telephone number that you gave out because mine is too complicated to ask you over the phone, sir.
What you mean? The phone number I just gave you? You need that again?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes. It's 307-274-4122. What's your first name, sir?
Ricky.
Ricky? Okay, Ricky. Well,
yeah.
I have your phone number here on my screen, so I've written it down, and if you'd like, I can give you a call after this call.
That'd be fine, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Okay, our next question, and for some reason we lost somebody here. Let's see, is area code 336. Go ahead, 336.
Hey, Jim, this is Stan. How you doing?
Yes, sir, Stan. How can I help you?
Hey, look, well, I finally get to move. I'm finally getting moved down here, but I'm almost like starting over again, and I'm indeed going to need some help in finalizing this information. I think what I'm going to do is, what I would like to do is maybe get back with you and maybe set up a time to get this finalized.
All right. Well, I've got your phone number here. I wrote it down, and I'm going to give you a call this afternoon after this call.
Okay. Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next caller is area code 978. That's 978. Hello, 978?
Hi, Jim. I have a question about the gifting.
Yes.
Do the recipients of the gift have to have a document notarized prior to the RV?
They don't have to have one, but you do. And the reason is when you do a gift letter, and by the way, let me qualify this. I myself have made about 15 gifts. All of the gifts have been made through the gift subtrust. So the way I'm doing it is I'm going to be in control of that money. I'm going to be treating everyone differently. They're different ages. They're different sophistications. They have different needs. But none of those 15 people know I'm gifting them anything. They'll know about this after the fact. But the reason
that's what I'm wanting to do.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And the reason is because up until the moment you actually physically make that gift to them, you may change your mind. So I've got people that say, well, I've got a problem. I gave people gift letters, and now I don't want to give them the money. Well, you gave them the gift letter. You don't have to give them the money, but you might have created a problem for the future. So my advice to anyone is don't discuss your gifts with anyone until you're actually about to give them, to make the gift, physically make the gift. The other thing is you may not want to gift them quite that much. We've worded gift letters to say we will gift you up to this or up to that. So I can give them all of that, I can give them some of that, or I can give them none of that. So, and the reason you want a gift letter notarized is because you want to establish that the gift was in fact made prior to the revaluation, so you're not exposed to a federal gift tax.
Okay.
In other words, if I want to give you $1 million dinar, it's worth, let's say it's worth $1,000. If I don't have a gift letter, then I may have a problem with the IRS. They said, well, you gave them $3 million and you got to pay a gift tax on that. Well, no, I gave them $1 million dinar before it. Well, I see the gift letter, but it's not notarized, so I don't know. You can't substantiate the date. So that's why you want all gift letters notarized.
Okay, and that piece I did understand. It just wasn't clear. Like you, I don't want to tell these people about it, so I want it to be, quiet. So I'm glad that they don't.
It's like anything else. You don't tell people you're going to give them something at some point in time in the future when something might happen. It's much easier for everyone concerned to wait for the event and gift it at that time.
Yep. Okay. Very good. All right. Thank you so much.
Sure. All right. Bye-bye now. Okay. Our next caller is area code 619. That's 619. It's got to be Eddie.
Hey, Jim. It's Eddie. How are you?
How you doing, Eddie?
Good. Piggybacking on that gift tax scenario, long-term capital gains. If you hold it for a year and 1 day, then it would be considered long-term capital gains. So if I gift someone $17,000 as an example, or more, is that going to be considered a long-term capital gains to them, or short-term to them at the time that I gift it, because they haven't held on to it for a year? Or if the gift letter is dated for a year or longer, it now clears the capital gains? I don't know if you understand my question there.
Yeah, I understand perfectly. It should clear capital gain, but you know what? I'm going to call the lawyers and ask them about that. That is my understanding. I've never had a situation in my life where I've had to actually, that's kind of it sounds like inside baseball, but it's not, especially since they're increasing the short-term cap gain rate. I'm wondering if they're going to call it short-term cap gain to the recipient. So let me write this down.
So if the letter was dated, let's say it created a gift letter 2 years ago, is that to them, is that going to be a long-term capital gain? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, let me write down your number here. I got it in the screen. I've got your number in my phone, but I'm going to write it down right here. I'm going to have to make a lot of calls here today. I hope I can get the information for everyone. I'm going to call the lawyer and ask about it, or at least email him. Sometimes I can get to him faster emailing him. I will get back to you when I have the answer to that. I'm thinking that he will be taxed the way you would have been taxed since you purchased it, but I want to confirm that. But that's a good question, and that's actually one that I hadn't thought about. But I will get that answer to you, Eddie. And we might even have to put that on our website as part of the gifting trust, too. Okay? Eddie, you there?
Yeah, Jim, I'm sorry I had you on hold. That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, sure, Eddie. Bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller is area code 509. That's 509.
Hello there, Jim. This is Art Taylor. How are you doing today?
How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, it's been a couple whiles. Hey,
yeah,
I've got a question that is, forgive me, maybe unfair. Back several years ago, as you well know, my wife and I have purchased a trust from another company before we even knew about, Trust Unlimited to a great extent.
Right.
And it was before, while Ray Brooks was still alive with us. There was a gentleman, dare I say, call him gentleman, by the name of Blano.
Yes.
Does that ring a bell? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. He was constructing at the time a situation where he had supposedly a pre-sale and exchange of currencies, whereas to be able to participate with this, you had to send your currencies to him to be able to take advantage of that pre-exchange amount with those heavy breathers that were going to do that. Well, the more he got into it, the more I didn't like anything he was talking about. He was slick, smooth, and anyway, bottom line is, I was able to get our currencies back from him. He didn't like it, and I actually had to basically tell him, I'm going to get the state attorney generals involved, and I will come down to your location doorstep with the sheriff's department and to get the currency. He immediately sent it to me. Now, I heard, just going over my notes, that, and again, another gentleman that is well known, Nick Fleming, had indicated that there's a possibility that when an individual of nefarious nature gets his hands on currency, even though you get it back, there's a potential that they, just by the use of the serial numbers, could exchange that prior to you having access to be able to exchange. Is that correct?
If you go to the bank and you have the physical currency in your possession and you have an invoice for the purchase of that, then they're going to have to claw back that person who defrauded the bank. Now, you mentioned Blano. When they brought me to the firm, I didn't know who Blano was, but shortly after I came with Trust Unlimited, I basically went to them and said, he goes or I go. All right.
Was he was part of Trust Unlimited?
No, but Ray Brooks had referred to him on occasion.
Yes.
And Blano had actually my understanding was he was a guest on a call prior to my coming. So what I investigated the guy. So as a condition of my coming aboard, he had to go. Fleming, as I said, I explained, as long as if you possess physical currency and you have the invoice for the purchase, you're good. It may be a little bit of a headache you have to go through, but you're good. There was another gentleman, while we're on the subject, Nick Perino.
Okay, yes.
Guy, all right. Well, let me put it to you this way. After this revaluation, things are going to get sorted out, and some people are going to jail for a long time. I'll just leave it at that.
Right. I understand. That's what I was, like I say, bad news doesn't get better with age, but this brings things to a point where you have the wherewithal that it will sort itself out, and as long as you've got. Now, the question I have is, if you purchased a good number of dinar while you were boots on the ground, and upon going to, say, the Bank of El Rashid, they didn't give receipts. So, basically, a memorandum for record stating that, in effect, with a association or associated service member that was there with you, substantiating that purchase, or those purchases, were done at the Bank of El Rashid without a receipt, maybe a buck slip, if I recall, that will substantiate the
it should.
Purchase.
And again, if you're once again, when you're in physical possession of the currency, you're in pretty good shape.
Right.
And that's why why they're going to all the trouble, and I'd say it's short term, to reduce the value of the dinar in country because they're trying to collect a provisional 3-0 currency.
Right.
Not because an Iraqi citizen can utilize those 3 zeros, but because nefarious individuals can try to get that out of the country and try to negotiate an exchange that will honor the 3 zeros. So, that's the deal there. But like I said, if you're legit, if you purchase the currency, you have the invoice for the currency, and you possess the physical currency, the bank, for no other reason, they're going to lose just a transaction fee if they don't do business with you. I mean, what else? What other thing could you provide?
Right.
So
right. Well, that's good. Okay, real quick second one. You just touched on it earlier. And again, the other trust company, they said the gifting letters was all that was necessary, and you're probably familiar with this, that you could gift, a particular amount of currency to an individual with the gifting letter and it not being notarized. And that is good. And nothing was ever said about the fact that there could be a gift tax. Nothing was ever said that it should be notarized. Just a simple, written out.
Well, what do you mean it was never said? Who never said that?
The other company that I've dealt with that we ended up purchasing a trust fund through Ray Brooks. And so that's intuitively, that's one of the reasons why, I have come back home to you, for lack of better words. And but the horse is already out of the barn. But, because the gifting that we did, they didn't have a gift subtrust. So they basically said, write out a letter, gift the amount to the individual or whoever it might be, and that's good to go. But
let's put it to you this way: if you have if you have a gift letter that you just signed and it's dated, you might be okay. But if you have a notarized gift letter, you are okay. Okay, and when we're talking about this amount of money, it's ridiculous. For goodness sakes, can you imagine being exposed to potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxes because you didn't get a letter notarized? It's just, we could talk all day about this, but whenever there's a situation where there's a potential for a real windfall profit, a lot of people get involved. Some of them are well-meaning. They just don't know what they're doing, and there's some nefarious people involved in there. That's why we try to keep everything right down Main Street. Get everything notarized, get everything signed, get it all done pre-RV. Keep good records of everything. Keep all of your invoices. Don't give your currencies to anyone. Don't discuss what you've got to people you're going to gift. Don't do any of that. Go to the bank, negotiate your exchange, put all of that money in the account. Make sure the deposit slip does not have a 10 or 21-day hold. Get to your car, drive away. Then you come back to the bank to do whatever you want to do. And if they don't, do what you want, you're we call it the Jed Clampett effect. It's your money, you're in control.
Right. Yeah, well, it's obvious or intuitive that continued learning education for as far as trusts, we've come a long ways as far as myself is concerned. I used to listen to you folks all the time, but yet it doesn't take away the fact that when you listen and get information and guidance from someone like you said, they don't know what they're talking about, then that puts a lot of people out there besides me that are in potential jeopardy. There's no way you can go back and create a notarized document to somebody unless maybe you go in and with the original document and create a new document that's notarized, the dates being changed, of course, because there's two separate documents that the
if you have a notarized document that's pre-RV, even pre-RI, you're good. If people have gift letters right now that aren't notarized, my suggestion for them is to go get rewrite it and do it notarized. It doesn't matter if it's a different date. The only issue is it a pre-RV date? You're good.
Right.
You're good.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, it just creates a little bit of necessary work prior to the actual RV taking place, and we're up for that. So thank you very kindly. That
certainly
sheds a lot of light on it, and we'll pursue that. And we're still discussing between my wife and I whether we want to. You highly recommend getting a trust from you folks pre-RV, even though we've already got a trust from the other company, the company that Ray was.
Obviously, as an example, our gift sub trust, that was my creation. Now, I haven't seen a trust out there that has a gift sub trust. To me, that was a no-brainer. Because
right.
There are families, they have children that they want the money managed, but they want it protected in trust. There are individuals that are incapacitated that can't manage the money. Unfortunately, and I've been doing estate planning for almost 40 years, families that have many children, some of them have drug issues, some of them have criminal records. They don't trust them with anything. And so we set up trusts where all of their bills are paid directly from the trust, and the only thing they get is a little bit of walking around money. So, there's all kinds of reasons why you want to control the money. So when you have a lot of wealth, and people will learn, they say, gee, it's great to be wealthy. I don't have a 9-to-5 job. When you're a really wealthy person, you have a 24/7 job because you got to manage that money.
Right. Now, if we were to,
people,
yes. Now, if we were to go ahead and follow, if we were to follow through, Jim, with getting a second trust through you, meaning that we'd have two trusts, would Trust Unlimited?
Yeah, if you want to do that.
Would Trust Unlimited that you would help us manage both? Does that make sense?
Well, you would only utilize one. You wouldn't utilize them both.
Could you sell that trust to somebody else?
It would be like you and your wife each getting in a car to drive to the same place. So, you only need one trust. You need a package of trust. I took a good look at that. The trust you have now was a truncated version of the Trust Unlimited trust when I came to Trust Unlimited, and I reviewed the trust. I went to the lawyers. I probably made 15 suggestions, 13 or 14 of them, inclusive of the family. The gifting sub-trust, they said, hey, that's a good idea. Let's remove that we don't need that in there. So, obviously our trust is far superior, but if you have Ray's trust, that versus nothing, you're in much better shape. So, that's your call. If you decide to make the change, right. I'll be happy to help you.
Okay. Well, I'll send an email. I'm still, like I say, concerned about. I just want to have the right trust, and I don't know if it's one's better than the other. But like I say, hopefully,
that's your call. Just call sometime or send me an email or just ask me more specifics, and I'll look into it, okay?
Okay. Thank you kindly, sir. I appreciate it. You have a great day. Appreciate it.
You too. Bye-bye. Our next caller is Air 810. That's 810.
Hi, Jim. This is Diane. How are you?
Hi, Diane. How are you? You recently got a trust with us, didn't you?
I sure did.
I remember the name.
And I'm still learning. But anyway, I had a question. Well, I had a couple of questions. One was, I know you had said that our Social Security number would not be attached to our trust. Now, in filling out the information to get the EIN, I know that's one of the questions they ask is for your Social Security number. So would that is that supposed to be like that?
No. Well, what I meant by that was now either the settlor or the trustee can apply for the EIN number, and they do take a social. But if someone wants information about you and they have your Social Security number, the trust will not come up because it operates under the EIN number. If someone is wants information about you, but the only thing they have is the trust EIN. They can't get that social. The fact that the IRS knows your social, that's not information they would divulge to anyone that was investigating the trust for some reason.
Okay. So also
that's internal to the IRS.
Okay.
Okay, so the only way they would get that information is if they went to a court to show cause, probable cause, that they've been defrauded or something, and at that point they might be able to get your social. But no one simply being curious is going to get that number, and nor are they going to know what's actually in the trust, because the only thing they will get is the name of the master trust. That's the only information that would be available with the EIN number.
Okay, so you also said about putting the gift sub-trust, getting an EIN for that as well, or would that be a part?
Right, because the gift sub-trust has a different trustee. When you name a trustee, that person is the trustee over the package, with the exception of the gift sub-trust, because you are the beneficiary. You are the trustee of the gift sub-trust. You're not the beneficiary. So you're the settlor of all of the trusts. The trustee is the trustee of all of the trusts, with the exception of the gift sub-trust. You are the settlor / trustee of the gift sub-trust, and the people that you are gifting are the beneficiaries of the gift sub-trust. That's why it has a separate EIN. It has a separate trustee.
Okay, so I would have to fill out one for each one of them, for the gift sub-trust and just for the trust in itself.
Yeah,
That's
you would be the trust. Yes. Now, with the gift sub-trust, what will happen with that is, let's say you're gifting 5 people. You'll go to the bank, you'll negotiate your exchange, the USD will go into your master trust bank account. You will then leave that bank. You will not. They will not know about the gift sub-trust. You're not doing anything with the gift sub-trust. You may not even use that bank for the gift sub-trust. Who knows? But you will go back with the gift sub-trust and establish accounts for each of those individuals and transfer money from the master trust bank account to the bank accounts that you establish for the gift sub-trust. But if you will read the exchange protocol, if you have a trust, that's the last document that came with your trust package. It explains how all that's done.
Okay.
Again,
so
look at that.
So also, when you were talking about the gifting letters, if you wanted to gift currency before the RV, or either if you just wanted to not gift it, but gift it. And give it to them before the RV. You could put up to whatever amount, and then now they would be responsible for their taxes.
Correct.
But if I gift it to them afterwards, then I'm responsible. Correct?
Yes.
Am I correct?
What some people are going to do, they've made a decision. Well, rather than give them any currency at all, pre or post RV, I'm just going to give them cash flow. So, for example, a married couple can give as many individuals as they want $25,000 a year, gift tax free. So you might have, I'm just making up, you might have 4 children, and you decide, okay, we're going to give each of you $25,000 a year, or $2,000 a month, or $5,000 every 3 months, well, however you want to do it. And rather than gift them currencies pre-RV, you're just going to give them a cash flow post-RV. And a lot of times people will do that to reduce the size of their estate, which reduces the exposure to the federal estate tax when you pass a estate along outside of the trust, because everything in the trust will bypass probate and the federal estate tax. But all of those issues we'll be discussing with you post-RV.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
I probably got the weeds there.
Yeah, but one last question, then I'm going to move on.
That's fine.
You said that we would be able to, once we put our currency into the trust after the RV occurs, and then we wanted to be able to manage the rest of our lives or do whatever we want to do or needed to do, you said that we would be able to have the money transferred into an account. But I guess I'm trying to understand what really gives us the right, or I don't want to say give us the right, but how do we actually do this without being
okay? There are a number of ways. First of all, look at the trust as a safe, and everything that's in the trust is in that safe. You and the trustee have the combination to that safe, but that safe is in your home. So the trustee can't do anything without your knowledge and consent because the safe's in your home. Now, let's say you've done your exchange, and let's just real simple. Now, let's say you have $5 million, and it's in your trust bank account, and you decide that you want to establish an investment account and make a couple of purchases. So you do all of that. You fund sub-trust with the purchase of a home or a couple of cars. You set up an investment account through the trust, but you want some monthly walking around money. You can do one of two things. You can simply have an automatic transfer from your trust checking account to your personal checking account. So you say, well, you know what? My bills are $5,000 a month, so I want $7,500 a month automatically transferred from my trust bank account to my personal checking account. So first of the month, $7,500 goes in your checking account. You have your ATM cards. You can do whatever you want. You've got it's like you have a job and you have an automatic deposit from your check on a monthly basis. The other way you could do it is you could have the trustee sign maybe 6 checks, blank checks. You keep those, with the checkbook, all of that stays in your possession. The trust, checking, savings account, titles, all that's in your physical possession. So the trustee signs 6 checks every month. For 6 months, you just, fill out the amount and deposit it into your account. So there's any number of ways you can transfer, for liquidity purposes, cash from the trust to yourself.
So are you paying taxes on that once you transfer it over into your account?
Each quarter, you will determine what the tax is. If the money is retained by the trust will pay the tax. If the money has been paid to you, you will pay the tax. If it's been split, the trust will pay the tax on the portion it retained. You will pay a tax on the portion that you received.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate all the information. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code
Jim.
31. Hey, Les, what's happened? I think I cut you off there, buddy, earlier. Did I?
You sure did, and I had to speak up before it gets cut off again.
My bad. I was going to call you back and apologize. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all right, man. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I got 2 special listeners listening.
All right.
And they're not short bus special. They're just plain special.
Well, one's an FBI agent and the other's an IRS agent, right?
Oh, man. So, here, I want to say this before I ask that ask the question for my 2 special people.
All right.
The gifting. Now, what I did for my gifting was I put the gift in an envelope with the person's name on it. I put that envelope inside another envelope with my name on it. And I just asked them to hold it for me. So them holding it for me, when the time comes, I'll just tell them to go open that envelope. And they'll
okay, let me ask just one question. Was the document notarized?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, at least you're good there. But once you've
I gave them a letter, a notarized letter.
All right. Well, you should be good. I myself don't think it's a good idea to discuss gifts with people till you actually have the gift in hand to give them. But to each his own. If you're good with that, then that's good.
Yeah, they're holding it. They're holding it. So they're not going to open it or anything. They're just holding it for me. But
Okay.
Yeah, because I put my name on the outside, so I just told them, just hold this for me. So they don't know what's in it because it's.
Well, that's kind of a cryptic.
It is
thing, But that's like I said, that's fine. I mean, I myself am going to enjoy having everyone come to the house for a nice dinner and then sitting them down and then handing them an envelope and then giving them a very general explanation of what I've done and then asking them to open their envelopes. So, but everyone has their own thing, because I'm Greek, so we do a lot of drama, in our family.
Okay.
So
that's not bad, though. That's a good idea.
To each his own. I mean, it sounds like Murder on the Orient Express type of a thing, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but my reason behind it was to avoid the short-term tax, if there was one. No, not the short-term, the long-term tax, if there was one. And them having it longer than 2 years puts them in the short-term, not short-term, long-term tax bracket, which is less than the short-term.
Here's what I'm not sure of. I'm not sure if they're liable for the long-term or short-term based on the gifter or whether they're liable based on the date of the gift. But I suspect that if it's a long-term hold on your part, then the liability to them might be long-term too. But, the IRS is going to err on the side of the higher tax. So that's one of the questions I'm really curious. I don't know the answer to that. In my youth, I didn't like to say I don't know, but when you get older, you realize that's not a bad answer. If you don't know, just
not a bad answer.
Own up to it. So I'm going to find out. I suspect that they're probably it's going to be based on how long the gift existed, but I want to get something from the lawyer on that so that next week I can say, hey, I got a question. I wasn't sure about the answer. Here's the answer.
Yeah, that notarized letter with their name and everything on it and them having it for that period of time, that was the second security tactic for the gift tax, if there should be one. But we'll see. I'll wait for your inspection.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm going to go to the attorney today, and I want his answer in writing, and I'll just, I'll make sure it's part of the call next week.
All right. Now, getting to the special question. The special question is, what's the difference between a Nevis trust and this trust that we have with you?
A Nevis trust is an offshore trust.
Of course, yes.
Well, there's many types.
Are there pros and cons to having it?
We're going to be discussing offshore trusts. If we have an issue with the central bank digital currency or federal estate tax or other, depending upon what happens, we may strongly recommend people establish offshore trusts. So we're going to have to see. We were talking about offshore trusts years ago. Then we kind of backed off on it. But since the Biden administration got in there, since we're seeing the U.S. dollar weaken globally, since we're seeing the institution, the glide path for the central bank digital currency, we may, and since now they're talking about creating a wealth tax, which I don't think they can do constitutionally, or reducing the exemption from the federal estate tax from approximately 12.2 back to 5 or even 1 million, then we're going to have to look at some other things. And one of the things we'll have to look at again strongly is offshore entities. So we're going to be back looking at that very shortly.
Okay.
All right.
That's all I got. Say hi to the professor, man, and thanks again.
Will do. Yes,
Have
sir.
a good day.
Take care.
All right, buddy.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Well, Les was our last call for today. Again, thanks so much for listening to the call. The information, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty good. For the reasons I've stated about those of you with Dinar establishing your trust pre-RV, and those of you that are American citizens and are sick and tired of being sick and tired, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package, contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. We, of course, will have our call next week. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.